Pour a cup, take a break, settle down and join us on a whim. Gentle thoughts, honest talks, it's time for a sip and stim.
Hi, I'm Toni.
Hi, I'm Kate.
Hi, I'm Derek.
Welcome to Sip Stim, where parenting on the spectrum pairs best with caffeine, coping skills, and stims.
How are you this week, Toni?
I'm good. Kind of embracing the rain today. We started a little mini garden, and it's fingers crossed going pretty well. So we'll see if my tomatoes decide to make it this summer. How about you guys?
We have a little garden too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually doing really well. But
Except for the weeds.
Well, my flower garden is not doing well, but our vegetable garden's doing great.
Nice.
Everything can't thrive at the same time. Like your car can't be clean and your house, your vegetable garden and your flower garden can't,
No,
pick and choose.
It's either the inside is okay or the outside's okay. But right now I am painting. I took on a home project like I do every summer. So I'm painting the outside of our house. So that's been fun.
The whole outside of your house?
Like the garage door, the front door, the shutters, all of that. So
Yeah, we went from one shade of green to a darker shade of green.
yeah.
I'm sure it's going to look great. That sounds very daunting. I don't think I would be able to do
I
that.
love it. I love it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's my favorite thing. But yeah, so today we are talking about marriage and autism, specifically, I guess, ours as an example, and the things that work and the things that don't work.
Yeah, so you guys kind of have the autism in your lives are coming from multiple different angles. Derek learned about his autism in adulthood, and you have two children with autism, very different children. And so tell me a little bit about that. So I'm sure there are some challenges and some really great things about your family dynamic. How does that work? And how do you feel that autism makes maybe your marriage and your communication style more challenging?
Communication, I think, is our biggest difficulty. I think also just the way that he prefers to work on things. Like I am very much like a list maker, go down the list. He is not. He's just kind of like fly by the seat of his pants. And I'm just not like that at all, which I think is partially my OCD. But I mean, overall, the communication, I think since us getting married, I mean, I've had to really adjust my flexibility with being more open with communication. I don't just kind of rely on social cues or like the subtle type of communication. I really have to kind of be in his face and just be like, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. And it seems like a little bit brash and harsh, but, and I'm sure it does feel like that to him. But I feel like sometimes that's the only way I can get my point across.
Yeah, and in a way, I mean, it's sort of what's needed because with my autism, there's that need for like predictability and structure, but I don't necessarily always have the skills to do that, you know? So when, Kate has to like tell me things, it has to be very clear. Due to my ADD, she has to like, be able to like look at me in order to give me a direction. Because a lot of times when she gives directions, if I'm not paying attention or if I'm focused on something else, I won't really even hear it. So I often have to tell Kate like, hey, like just look at me, make sure I'm looking at you, before you give a direction because I may not pick up on it right away or I might need to hear it a second time. If I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, and I think with my background, it was a little bit different. I never really had to communicate to anybody. Before I met Kate, I was living the bachelor lifestyle and really didn't answer to anybody. Did my own thing, as Kate said, very spontaneous, seat of my pants type of thing. And then that took a lot of adjusting too, not only getting married, but having, children, and having to over communicate a lot of times when, relationships aren't necessarily my easiest thing to do. And as Kate said, I'm also a type C. You have type A, type B. I like to say I'm type C, where like I'm organized, but I'm not at the same time. So piles, lists of things that I'm not going through one by one on a checklist. They're just sort of sitting there, and when I get to them, I get to them. But it's still the same type of thing because I will write like a to-do list and try to get all of them off of my list. It's just I may not go from point A to point C. I might start at like X.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that you were describing like your I'm glad you kind of further elaborated because you were sharing that you're kind of fly by the seat of your pants, but at the same time you like predictability. And I was wondering like how does that go together? And I think you kind of explained it a little bit, but
Yeah, it's the autism ADHD contradiction. I've been reading a lot about that. Like those two comorbidities tend to be very much contradictory.
mm-hmm.
However, that's how my brain works. Those two contradictory things somehow balance themselves out at some point.
I feel like a lot of people that I know that have autism also have ADHD. So that's probably something that I guess a lot of people that I interact with are dealing with. But you are different than maybe some of the children that I work with, and maybe some of the children that you work with because you're able to articulate that. So I think that's pretty
Yes.
helpful that you're able to share with Kate, like, for example, hey, if I'm not looking at you, I might not be listening and I need you to make sure I'm looking at you because I want to hear you. So I think that's really great that you can express that because that's something often I have to kind of just like figure out on my own. Like, oh, okay, they're not really listening.
And frankly, it's a trial by error type of situation where, you get to the point where things just aren't working out. And like the only choice you really have is to stop and figure out how can we accommodate with each other and our differences, because I feel like a lot of couples, they don't get to that point. We see about how like divorce rates are so high, and I think that's a lot of it. People aren't willing to accommodate to each other's needs, even with neurotypical couples.
100%. Yeah. So I feel like I remember, Kate, you sharing a bit about like your emotional tendencies and Derek's. I don't think Derek was on with us that day. But if I remember correctly, you kind of shared that you're more like to yourself and Derek's more of a feeler. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that kind of goes against what some people think. Like they think like, oh, someone has autism, so they don't have those like they don't have those feelings or that isn't a characteristic, but that's not true. And especially
No.
not in your situation.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions of autism. The classic case, from the very beginning was that people on the spectrum lack empathy. And it really isn't that. It's with the clients, and I'm sure you've had clients as well. Clients I've worked with, they are some of the biggest feelers. They're some of the most affectionate people that you'll come across. But they just struggle with showing it sometimes and
Hmm.
rationalizing it. I think you would even say like Greyson. Greyson is one of the most affectionate kids ever, despite his diagnosis.
Yeah, he's very affectionate, loving, wants to be kind of like all over everybody. But yeah, he's a lot like me in a lot of ways though too. But yeah, I definitely do have a little bit more of a hard time being open about my feelings. I don't know if it's just the way that I was raised or if it was learned somewhere along the way. But I do have a little bit of a harder time explaining how I'm feeling and what I need. And that can be very difficult in our relationship. Also, I find myself actually needing more like alone time than Derek does. I don't know if it's because I'm just mentally burnt out from all of the social interaction I have all day, every day, that there are times where I just need to be by myself and do my own thing and not have anybody in my face or talking to me. But it seems like for Derek that, I mean, yeah, he has those days, but he's not nearly as, I mean, I have those every day. He doesn't seem to have that as much as I do.
No, not at all, you know. I read somewhere about like introverts and extroverts, you know, it's not necessarily that extroverts are outgoing and introverts are shy. It's more about how they use energy, right? So an extrovert will feed off of energy, and then introvert, the energy sort of gets sucked out. So I would consider myself an introvert, but I can talk to people, you know, when I have the energy to, whenever, as long as I have the energy to do so. I feel like Kate probably is more of an extrovert, but I sometimes wonder if it's because you spend a lot of time by yourself with that kind of like energy. You know, maybe you aren't getting people that are giving you that energy.
I just think a lot of people are in our house all the time.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people in the house that give you energy, but they're usually not. They're just asking
Questions.
Where's the toilet paper?
Yeah.
Where's the shorts?
Do you have extra clothes? Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Lots
That's
of
got to
questions.
be draining.
It's awful.
It is, yeah. And Derek's only here for like 2 hours of all of it. I'm with them for 13 hours a day.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It's a lot. And so, of course, by the end of the day, when Derek's home from work, he wants to be social and affectionate. And I'm like, get off me. Like, please leave me alone. Because I've had people on me all day. And Greyson's been hanging on me all day. I've had Rosalind on me. And I want to be left alone. And that makes it very, very difficult for us sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure. The only thing that I can really relate to, and I feel like it doesn't really compare, is like that newborn phase when your baby is constantly on you if you're nursing, and then you're just like, oh, leave me alone. But like that is such a short period of time compared to you're navigating this with your older children, and you're navigating it with a lot of people, and there's a lot more going on than just a nursing baby. So that's got to be really tough because, yeah, I imagine I would have a hard time with that. Now, speaking of all of the therapies, that I imagine you guys often have to kind of conquer and divide, juggling all the responsibilities. Like I know, Derek, you're a BCBA yourself, and you're probably constantly traveling. I know you just recently got a promotion. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
Yes.
so that's awesome. Um, I don't know if that will change your dynamic or your work situation or not, but regardless, it's exciting. But I know you're kind of dealing with the on the road life and work, and I'm sure there's many times where you have to conquer and divide, and you're kind of both there doing your own thing, and that's probably hard, I imagine, just because I know for me, like there's nothing I love more than just being with my family together, doing things, even if we're doing something that's hard, like we're together. But that's probably not possible too often, I'm guessing.
No.
No, not at all.
No.
I think a lot of it, at least from my perspective, is trying to just make use of the time that we are all together and try to make those positive situations. Because, yeah, I mean, before the promotion, I was working 4 nights a week, you know, every other Saturday. So when I wasn't working over the weekend, those weekends, I tried to, you know, do something with everybody and try to make use of that time. But I mean, the truth is, I don't have true PTO a lot of times. Most of my PTO is to travel with Kate, you know, to Philadelphia, to go to appointments, surgeries, things like that, with everything that's going on.
Yeah, that's probably hard. For you to have a true vacation is probably not really in the foreseeable future due to everything you're juggling, let alone Grayson's, complexities. Probably can't just shut down. Um,
Yeah.
so that's got to be hard.
Yeah, I pretty much take the reins when it comes to taking care of the kids. Like he works so much and has a lot to deal with, so I kind of just try to take on as much as I can. So I'm usually like the dentist is in Philadelphia, so I will take staff with me instead of having Derek come with me. The only time I really kind of tell him he has to come with me is if it's like an appointment where Grayson's going to be put under anesthesia or something like that. Just because Grayson needs both parents there. He's used to when situations like that happen. He's used to both of us being there. So that's really it. Everything else I tend to take care of Monday through Friday, all of Grayson's regular standing appointments. And now Rosalind's appointments in Philadelphia. I've been taking her by myself. And I leave Grayson with staff here at home. And that's been tough. But luckily Rosalind's much easier to handle than Grayson.
Yeah, and then what I do is like if I do happen to be home or if I'm working from home, and there's something around the area that I can help Kate with, like taking Grayson to the center or to camp or something like that, I'll do that, without any real complaining, because, we're sort of working together and I know how much that she does when I'm at work.
It's a lot of driving.
Yeah.
Even yesterday, I took to Walmart. Trip to Walmart for our daughter.
Is Walmart far from you guys?
It's like 15 minutes tops, but
Okay.
Rosalind's obsessed with these squishy things. I don't know if your kids are. And she scouts out like every single store around here, like Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, like everywhere, trying to find these squishy things. And they are the most disgusting, like...
So dumb.
They're really, really stupid. But she loves them, and they are just nasty. But they're basically like squishy sensory toys, like slimy. Ugh.
And she tells me that they help her. She actually said, everybody looks at this as if it's a fad, but I seem to be the only person that's doing this because they actually help me. So she said, I hope they're no longer a fad.
It's really funny because I actually have never heard about them until this morning. I took my children and my neighbor's children to a camp, and the little girl that's our neighbor mentioned how they have squishies in their car and she wishes they were in our car. So I will have to investigate and see if it's the same thing. I have never heard of these things. I just assume
Yeah.
they're little, squishy balls or something of the sort. But
Yeah,
um,
basically. But they make like different shapes and stuff, and she's like obsessed with them.
She got a Mickey and a Minnie, so they come in like characters too.
So
that's
he
fun.
takes her for those trips because I don't have the patience to be scouting out all of these squishy things. So he does help with that kind of stuff, and he does a lot of things with Rosalind that I just don't have the emotional and physical energy to keep up with because
Mhm.
I'm just exhausted from dealing with Grayson all day.
Yeah, I imagine that's got to be a lot. Um, so I know, like you, Kate, were sharing that you kind of find yourself getting in that place where you're like, I just need time alone. And it's less often with you, Derek. And I don't know, I'm guessing because we have the same profession, maybe being alone in the car sometimes helps with that. Like, I know I get that quiet time. I could choose if I want music or if I want to be in silence or if I want to make a phone call at that time. But how do you navigate? Do you find it hard, being at work all day? I'm sure all of your clients are vastly different, but you're dealing with children that are on the spectrum, and then you come home to your own children who also have their own things going on. Is that hard for you? Is that overwhelming? um, how does that work for you?
Right now, it's not too bad, but that's also because, as Kate pointed out, like I'm working all the time, so I don't really have that like home stress. There was a position I had, a while back, where it was exactly like that. I'd go in at like 8 o'clock and then leave at like 4, and then come home. We wouldn't have a lot of the services, like people would call off. We didn't have nursing or a respite, and yeah, it was like going off of one job and then going to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely, I mean, I think we both agree it was a really hard time for all of us. I had really checked out for a while, experienced a lot of, I truly believe autism burnout. They talk a lot about that on social media, about how we feel burnout so much more, being on the spectrum, to the point where there's almost like a regression. Communication goes backwards. Some people have reported they become like catatonic. I've never been that point, but there were definitely concerns that, because I could feel myself sort of sliding backwards due to all the stress and all the responsibilities. And it really wasn't until I took a different job with different hours that, I started to feel a little better. It's funny because it's that 9 to 5 job. You would think that would be the easy one, but
Not for your situation.
no, not at all.
So I'm sure that kind of manifested in your marriage. Was that like a hard season for you guys when you were going through that autism burnout?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell, like, when we're not on the same page, there's a lot of, like, disconnect. I typically am very socially absent and just kind of, like I said, want to be on my own. He's usually kind of just engulfed in work and will work here at home. We'll do like random job related things at like 10 o'clock at night while I'm like sitting on the couch waiting to like watch a movie or do something together. And you can just tell that there is a disconnect. And so there are times where like we both need to kind of put the devices down in a way and, be like, hey, we need to figure this out because this just isn't working right now. And we've had those conversations plenty of times, where, we've had like our differences, or we've just been feeling like we're at different places, and we've had to kind of sit down and reevaluate where we both are at a time and discuss kind of a game plan. Because we know that honestly, we are better working as a team than we are apart.
Yeah, for sure. But that's where we keep, coming back together, because, we've noticed when things become like we're roommates rather than a couple. And then, finding those, really special moments. Because I acknowledge for sure that I use my phone sometimes as an escape. So making sure that I don't let that kind of like over stimulation like take over what's really important. And I think a lot of it is because we do try to stay on the same front. We take time to make sure that when we're parenting, that even if we have differences on things, that we try to stay in front of the kids unified. And that's really hard sometimes with Rosalind, because she tends to be the type that will put one parent over the other to try to get what she wants. So
I'm the bad parent. He's the good one. Yeah. It is very difficult to keep that mentality that you're both in it to, be a team. But there are definite times where, it's hard to keep the eye on that and, kind of get past those little road bumps and move forward.
I think your outlook is so great, though, and your willingness to be able to communicate even when things get hard. And I can say some of the things that you're sharing do resonate with me. I imagine that most marriages kind of get in that place where you're like, oh, we're in the roommate phase. We're just like chucking along, navigating life. But I think just the fact that you guys are so willing to communicate and communicate in a way that's very, you said it might sound like harsh, but very forthcoming, I think is so beneficial. And you guys always mention like, we're a team. And I imagine that you guys take that, like that feedback in that way. Like, oh, I'm not taking it personal. I'm taking her feedback because she's trying to help us to be a better team, or he's trying to help us to be a better team. So I'm not sure if that's how you guys, you know, interpret those communication opportunities, but it seems that way to me. And I think it's very healthy. And I'm sure there's a lot of like positives about your marriage too. And there's a lot of challenges, it seems like you're sharing, but I'm sure there's a lot of positives. What are some of the things that, I think, what are some of the things that are unique to you guys at living in a neurodivergent family?
It's always entertaining.
Go ahead. I mean, to me, a lot of this stuff just feels normal, but Kate's the one that usually can point out what's clearly not normal. As we talked about, I grew up with it feeling like it wasn't anything.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like I said, it's always entertaining. There's always something going on. You're always like living on the edge. Like there's something that's going to happen. So you can imagine I don't rest very well. But I've noticed that the older that I've gotten, the less sleep I've needed, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I definitely embrace the funny moments as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely always something going on or something happening that, is gonna keep me busy. So
we have a lot of inside jokes.
Yeah. I feel like you have to laugh at the small things, or else I think we would go crazy.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've observed from you guys that I think is really cool is I just love that Derek has such a good understanding of like Roz, and you feel like you have a really good understanding of who Greyson is, and I think that to me, like just as an outsider, that's very unique. I've even worked with families where one of the parents were autistic and their children were, and from what you guys have shared, I feel like you guys understand your children in ways better than many of the families I've worked with. I don't know why that is. Because there's been times where I've been in homes and I'm like, there's very similar characteristics amongst all these people. But I think, I don't know, I just think you got your willingness to I don't know. It just seems like you guys are very willing to learn more about yourselves and change based on the feedback from each other. And I think that's really cool. I think that's really unique about your family from what I observe.
Well, and I think that, what you're noticing, Toni, like with the clients, because I've noticed it as well, is sometimes when you have a parent and a child that are both autistic, their rigidities play against each other. Because, you have a child who struggles with black and white thinking, struggles with, needing structure, needing predictability. And then you have a parent that is just as rigid, and it turns into stubbornness. So you have like a father and a son who are butting heads constantly because they're invading each other's rigidities. Like I had a client one time that he loved to pull out DVDs, and he would pull out all the DVDs in the collection to stim off and say like, I'm doing a movie review on this. I'm doing a movie review on this. And Dad needed it all to be like completely organized. So they were butting heads constantly because the very thing that was triggering to one was the thing that the other liked to do. And I don't know if we have that necessarily in our family. The closest I can
Gotcha.
think of is like Greyson and me, our sensory tolerance, like overstimulation and things like that. That's the only thing I can think of that sometimes we trigger each other with the way we react to things. But it's not in the way that, I was talking about some of these other situations where it's not like literal butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we both need the same thing and we can't get it from each other sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think overall, and you probably can relate to this, when you have children, you have to become flexible. You have to kind of prepare to expect the unexpected. And I think that, when you finally get into a routine and your child learns that routine and they get kind of used to the world, that is different. But in our situation, our kids never have gotten used to that routine. So we've constantly been living that like life where, we just kind of go with the flow. We have to be flexible. We have to be willing to change. And, despite how difficult that is for both of us, we know that, we love our children, and it would be really horrible if we didn't do it. It's the least that we can do for them. So, us being uncomfortable because we have to change or be flexible is nothing compared to what they have to experience every day.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think parenting there's so much sacrifice in it. But in the end, it's so rewarding. They're little blessings. So, I think that's great that you guys are so willing to change things about yourself for one another, for your kids. 'Cause it's hard. I will say, I say this often, like I can relate in ways that make sense to me. And I definitely can relate to some of the things you're sharing about, like you're very routine oriented, Kate, and that's me. Like my husband always laughs. He's like, "How many lists do you need?" And I'm like, "Well, I need a list for this and this, and I need a list just because I need to get it out, and then maybe I'll come back to it. Maybe I'll throw it away and forget about it." But I find it hard, myself when those unexpected things come up. But I'm sure there's a lot more with like Grayson, especially where the unexpected things pop up. So I know talking about the topic of like the lists and getting things done, I know you've shared that you kind of have this like binder of all the, or is it a file cabinet or is it a binder? I forget what you have now, of all of the documents and all of the appointments. And you're probably the one that's mostly managing that, I'm guessing, Kate, right?
Yeah, I used to have a binder, and then when things got to be a little too much, like we had too many specialists and things like that, I did switch over to a filing cabinet. But now that everything is electronic for the most part, I have electronic files that Derek has access to. So if for some reason I wouldn't be available and he would have to go to something, he would have access to everything right there. And if I have any advice to give a parent, I would say keep records of everything, and keep it electronic because it's so much easier.
They're always asking.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to know a lot of info.
Yeah, I know I ask a lot of info whenever I bring a new client on for services. So I'm always like, I'm so sorry. You've probably filled out this questionnaire or answered these questions a million times before. So I know from my angle, it's a lot. Now, you probably are like the default parent that kind of manages all this. Is that hard? Like knowing that you're the one that's kind of managing it and Derek's kind of like secondary in there when it comes to that stuff. Is that like something that maybe you might hold some resentment, towards Derek for, or how does that impact you?
I would say maybe a little bit. If there's any resentment, it's because I am the one who has to drive, and sit through appointments and things like that. But, you know, I know that he shows up when he absolutely has to or when he can. And so that makes it a lot easier for me. But as far as like being overwhelmed, I mean, it absolutely is. I definitely am the default parent, and I am the one who constantly is the one scheduling things and having to provide the information when doctors ask. And a lot of it falls on me, and it's tough. I often feel like I'm the one, I almost like I'm a single parent when I'm out taking him to things, like different appointments and stuff like that. And it's just, I mean, that's how it is. That's how our family dynamic has to function to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, even though there are some things that I contribute as well, I mean, when we get to like my specific like specialties and stuff, you know, I attend every IEP meeting. You know, when it comes to educational things, I tend to not necessarily take the lead, but I give a lot of the advice. When it comes to like financial decisions, I tend to you know, give a lot of the advice as well and manage a lot of those types of things too. So, I mean, we make sure that the things that like I'm really like good with, that, you know, I take a leading role in that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that probably helps, like in those moments where you're really good at, you know, X, Y, and Z. Kate can just kind of, okay, he's got this right now. And I'm sure your mama bear never turns off, where you're always right on the verge of like, okay, if I need to advocate, I need to advocate for my son or my daughter. So you guys seem to have a very like positive outlook on your relationship, and you're very real and raw when it comes to the challenges. Has there been like a period of like grief per se? Like I know a lot of families share when they learn of their child's diagnosis. A lot of times they share that they go through phases of grief. Have you guys experienced any grief surrounding your marriage not being traditional per se? And if so, how did you kind of like shift toward, you know, through that to kind of more so embrace the positives?
I don't think that there's been like a time period. I mean, there are times when, you know, we have moments where like we wish we could go out and do, you know, a date night, or like I wish that we could go out and have like dinner and a movie or things like that. And realistically, we just know we can't. So there are like moments like that where, like, if there's a movie I really want to see that's in theaters, it's disappointing, and I do feel, you know, sadness that we aren't able to do things that normal couples do. But I don't think that there's ever been like a long period of time where or at least I have been upset about our marriage not being like a traditional marriage. I mean, I look at it as we are so untraditional that having a traditional marriage it would be weird.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that I am sort of on the other end in the fact that it took me a long time to come to terms. Not necessarily with the marriage. Marriage has always been really important to me. Both my parents have been in multiple marriages and, you know, didn't work in a lot of cases. So I really made a promise that like I would really work on it, and that if I, you know, ever got married, that I would put the work in needed to make sure that it was long term and find the right person. So I mean, as far as grieving, it was never about my relationship with Kate. It was more about, like, as you mentioned, the grieving over what could have been, you know, particularly with Greyson. Rosalind, I mean, I have a really good relationship, but with Greyson, you know, and many times I felt very responsible because, you know, we did the genetic testing, you know, it came a lot of his genetic issues came from, my side of the family. The autism, obviously, comes, from my side of the family. And I just sort of initially felt very like guilty and sad that, it wasn't going to turn out the way that, other families, turned out. And I mean, I'm sad to say, I mean, it lasted a better part of probably a decade, So I lived with a lot of that guilt and resentment for a really long time. And in the last, couple years, I've really done my best to turn things around on my outlook, and appreciate the positives and the great things that do occur every day. The fact that I have two very sweet, wonderful children, and looking past the struggles and starting to look more towards the positive. And I mean, I don't think I would have ever gotten to that point without Kate and, her positive outlook. I tend to be a little more pessimistic when it comes to those types of things.
It's great. You guys seem like you're like the yin to the yang. You guys kind of like, you know, complement each other in many ways. So we kind of dabbled a bit in this, like some of the things that have really worked for you guys and that have helped, but maybe could we kind of go through again just so that we can like summarize or, anything else that you can kind of think of. What are some ways that you have made your marriage work? Like, what are some strategies that you guys have utilized to be the team that you are?
It's a good question.
Yeah. Well, definitely increasing communication, as we talked about at the beginning of the session of the podcast. Essentially, making sure that I am letting Kate know how I'm feeling and letting Kate know like where I'm struggling, so that we can work through things and work through scheduling and come up with more, organized ways to go about it.
Yeah, and I think being open with communication and willing to have those difficult conversations, as uncomfortable as they may be, that's really important. Being able to speak your mind and tell your partner, really what is bothering you, or what you need in that moment. I mean, that's really important. And, we're comfortable enough with each other, obviously, that, we're able to do that. And I think that that's really, really important.
That's great.
I think another method is like having a schedule. So I know that Kate keeps everything in a Google Calendar. So when we talk about like scheduling stresses, making sure that all of the, appointments and conflicts are put in one area so that, we know when things are and when I need to take PTO and I need to, go out and, make changes to things. And then if I have something, I can sort of, let her know. Though, I mean, a lot of times with my schedule, it's like, okay, it's from this hour to this hour.
Yeah, I'm sure that really helps with that executive functioning piece that, Kate kind of helps provide that support in that way. If that's something that you struggle with, or, I think many people can struggle with that skill in general. Those skills that are involved with executive functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's move on to the one comment here about the date nights too. So sort of saying how like, making sure that essentially that, especially with us now that we have the respite, we're going to try to make sure that we take the nights that, Greyson may have services or may have, an overnight, and use that to devote time to, the two of us, or even to Rosalind as well. which I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Our main focus when he has those services is always going to be Rosalind first, making sure that she knows, she is just as valued as Grayson is. She's just as part of this family. And last night, actually, Grayson had his first overnight respite experience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Rosalind was very emotional having him leave the house. But it was good. It was good for all of us. And we did like a movie night, and we kind of all just hung out. And
it was his first night away from us.
Since he was a baby.
Yeah, ever since he was a baby.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, you're looking at least 7 years.
Yeah.
So it was really...
And did it go well?
I was up several times in the middle of the night just because I'm so used to it. But yes-ish. He, the worker that he stayed with, he got up a couple times, was having some seizure activity. And so, she got him up. They had pancakes around midnight, and he got a shower because of a syrup fiasco. So, yeah, I mean, all things considered, I would say it was successful. He slept until 8:30 this morning, and yeah, we slept in, and Rosalind was almost late for art camp this morning. So yeah, I mean, little fun things that we're just trying to work on right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll always recommend, I know it takes a long time, but for parents out there that are, looking for that relief, getting on a respite program, getting, if it's available, on a community service program, where somebody can, go out on community outings with your child, to provide you with that sort of time for yourself. I know it's not easy for everybody. I mean, for us, it was a 6-year wait, but it was worth it. It's well worth it.
Like 7 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a long time.
Very long. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was an experience, and it's giving us the opportunity to really have time for ourselves and not be worried about, X, Y, and Z with Grayson. And I think that that's really important for us. And this summer so far, he's been going out, doing things with other people, and I at least have had to learn to accept that and let him do his own thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard, but I'm sure it's also really great for you to kind of be able to have time where you can just shut down a little bit or reconnect with Rosalind or Derek, and vice versa. So I'm glad that it went well for you guys and that he was able to have some pancake breakfast in the middle of the night. That seems pretty fun.
Yeah, he eats pancakes for her, but not for us.
Oh, that's funny.
We were eating French fries for her too the other day too.
Yeah, he does a lot of things. He shows off for her, but he will not do it for us.
Too funny. Well, thank you both for coming on today. Derek, thank you for joining us again and sharing a little bit about your marriage and being so willing to be vulnerable and about some of the challenges that you guys have, and also the wins and the positive attributes to your marriage and your relationships with your children. We really look forward to hearing what our listeners think about our podcast today. So please like and follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. We can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon.
Next time, we will be talking to my sister, my younger sister, who is currently going through the evaluation process with her oldest child. He is 3 years old, and he's the cutest little guy. And we're going to get some feedback from her based on the early intervention skills that she's learned and some of the challenges that she's kind of encountered with wait lists.
Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.
Bye. You can say bye.
Bye.
Sip and stim. Sip and Stim.